Hey, look at that, we've finally got some real numbers. According to the Nielsen IQ data for the United Kingdom, the Nintendo Switch 2 is the fastest selling Nintendo machine in United Kingdom history, more than doubling the numbers of the Nintendo Switch 1. Now, I should note that the Nintendo Switch 1 did not have the best launch prior to that, it was actually the Nintendo 3DS, but now the Switch holds that record. Which I stress again because I need to remind people over and over again that the opening day sales, the launch day sales don't really matter that much. Now, in addition to that, while the Nintendo Switch 2 is the best-selling Nintendo console of all time, it still does not come close to the rivals. The PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 4, and even the Xbox Series X all outsold the Nintendo Switch when it comes to the launch window. And keep in mind, the Nintendo Switch 1, the Series X, and the PS5 were all extremely limited when it comes to supply. So while yes, it is true that these markets are already pretty difficult for Nintendo, it's not always as black and white as you think it might be. For example, this was a good launch for the Nintendo Switch 2, right? It sold double what the Nintendo Switch 1 sold, the fastest selling Nintendo launch sales. Well, we should also keep in mind that week 1 sales are always from a Sunday to Saturday period. Therefore, some game consoles only have 2 days of sales, whereas others have potentially 5. I say that because the Nintendo 3DS in Europe launched on March 25th, 2011, which was a Friday, and the Nintendo Switch launched on March 3rd, 2017, which was also a Friday. The Switch 2 came out on a Thursday, so it's getting 1 extra day of sales in these comparisons. Now, that being said, I'm pretty sure the 3DS and the Nintendo Switch actually sold out right at launch, or maybe even in day 1 anyway. But I could be entirely wrong about that one. I'm not sure how many stragglers were left around that people ended up buying on day 2, so that could potentially not alter the numbers. But regardless, when it comes to the Nintendo console specifically, we're comparing a 2-day launch with a 1-day launch. Or I guess technically it could be a 2-day launch to a 3-day launch. I don't know what time they cut it off on Saturday when they let the numbers in. And in case you were wondering, the PS5 launched on a Thursday as well as the Nintendo Switch 2, but the Series X did launch on a Tuesday, so that might be in favor of Nintendo Switch 2's numbers because it had fewer days than the Series X. But again, to reiterate, all of these consoles that we're comparing were supply constrained. In the case of the Switch 1, we're talking about Nintendo scarcity, but in the case of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, we're talking worldwide pandemics, we're talking chip shortages, supply chain issues, but you know how it goes. When there's actual demand for something, people will find a way to buy it. And clearly in the United Kingdom, there wasn't as much demand for the Nintendo Switch 2 to make it have the most successful launch. Now, I'm guessing the advantage with the extra supply might come in next week, because again, PS5, Series X's, those were pretty much sold out on the spot. So hypothetically speaking, the Nintendo Switch 2 could have a very good second week in the UK numbers. And their week 1 and week 2 numbers altogether could potentially surpass the Xbox and the PlayStation 5's early days. But obviously, that's all just speculation on my end. I can't speak for the UK on this, but I know that there are people around here asking when a store is going to get more stock. They asked some Targets, some Best Buys, and by here, I mean in the United States. And many locations are saying they're not going to be getting shipments for another month. So it's entirely possible that's kind of going to be a pattern globally. But again, we don't know. What we do know, however, is that in France, the Nintendo Switch 2 is rumored by somebody that's more reliable than the person that said the 3 million number to potentially have double the sales of the PlayStation 5. They're saying that the launch window for the Nintendo Switch 2 had 200,000 units, which I believe the PS5 was close to 104 or 105,000. It should be clear that this is a rumor and the source is not yet verified, but I think there's a little bit more gravity to this one, and it's a lot more realistic than saying, I don't know, that this thing has sold 5 million units because Bloomberg thought it had 6 million of them made already. And similar to how the Nintendo Switch 2 is not a good market in the United Kingdom, in France, it's kind of the opposite. France is historically a good market for Nintendo, so this kind of aligns with what you would expect. Just like in the UK, it aligns with what you would expect that didn't sell as well as the PS5, even though PS5 had all those limitations. And just like it's breaking records in Spain, because it has availability. These things are going to help the Switch 2 early on. I do think it's funny that along with this report about how many Nintendo Switch 2s were sold, and many people are celebrating the fact that it has a 95% attachment rate with Mario Kart World. which it obviously does because so many Switch 2s came bundled in with Mario Kart World. And Mario Kart World is the only launch title. And Mario Kart was the best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch 1, so it makes a lot of sense that its sequel would potentially be extremely sought after. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not impressive that it has a 95% attachment rate, but it does mean that if it's bundled in at a drastic discount compared to how it would have been if you bought it individually, there should be at least a little bit of an asterisk over there. But regardless, at this time, I think these numbers are just going to continue to trickle in slowly and slowly. The thing that's most surprising for me is the lack of any kind of PR from Nintendo at this time. Hardware sales are usually more difficult to gauge, but usually you get a little bit of a vibe. But I mean, when you consider software sales, even Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U got a pretty quick message from Reggie Fils-Aimé that it was the fastest selling game on the Wii U. And like I said in a previous video, when the Switch launched pretty quickly, they mentioned that the Breath of the Wild had broken the records as well for being the fastest selling launch title. So the fact that we still haven't heard anything about how well Mario Kart World has actually done, aside from its attachment rate to the consoles in French, which is just a rumor still, or, you know, Nintendo's other phenomenal first-party title, Welcome Tour, is a little suspicious. I know that Famitsu sales usually update weekly, and I think their numbers usually come out on Thursdays, and Nintendo historically has made PR reports about sales numbers on Wednesdays, and seeing as how this is the least enthusiastic leadership that Nintendo has had in a very long time, I have a feeling that even if they are doing extremely well, this is the kind of lame Nintendo that doesn't go out there and tell the fans, hey, this is awesome, everybody's enjoying their new game, keep buying stuff. So while I do think this silence is indicative of maybe a launch that's not going as well as people think it is, it's also entirely possible that this is just a very quiet and lame Nintendo than we're used to when it comes to launches. But they did finally do something. They announced a new spin-off Splatoon game. Apparently they did it on the Today app and then they dropped a YouTube trailer, also mentioning some kind of major update for actual Splatoon 3. So, you know, the cynic in me is like, they're starting to pull their levers now. They're like, oh, we got to get people hyped about this. Let's make sure they know that things are coming. But the optimist might think to themselves, well, yeah, this is just part of how it goes. They launched the game, and then now they're just going to slowly throw out more and more small trailers like this just to make sure people know that games are on their way because they want people to buy the Nintendo Switch 2 and be happy knowing that the games are coming. But I don't know. If this is Nintendo trying to get people's attention, they really need something bigger than a spin-off for Splatoon. There were a bunch of rumors for a Nintendo Direct coming. I don't know if that's still being whispered about, but it'd be funny if this was the only thing that was supposed to be coming out from that rumor. People thought that Nintendo was going to drop some kind of Direct or announcement for a Direct. It ended up being just an announcement for a Splatoon spin-off. Whatever the case is, Nintendo in general likes to slowly drip feed everything. Their games, especially their games, even their consoles, and especially their announcements now. So it's possible that we get something small like this every week or so. And it's all part of the plan to continue to keep people engaged and hyped up for the console. But yeah, for now, we got the UK numbers, we have some rumors in France, and potentially over the next few days, we'll start hearing reports from retailers, we'll start hearing stuff from Famitsu, maybe even a tweet from Nintendo, but that realistically will only come if it is indeed a very positive launch. Which is still possible. They could say that this is the most successful Nintendo launch, and then you look at the numbers and it's not as strong as the PS5 and the Xbox. That's what happened in the UK. But we'll have to wait and see. Regardless, I will be keeping my eye on all of the news and all of the numbers, and I will keep you guys updated. Oh, also, I completely missed this one until right now, but remember how I made a whole big deal about the Nintendo Today app and how Nintendo is being all exclusive with it, not allowing people to screen record and screenshot footage and forcing people to have to download the app if they want to see their stuff? And I was like, this is just giving Nintendo another avenue to copyright strike people, to take things down, to force people to download their app so they can collect their data, to make sure they're controlling their own narrative. Well, I didn't realize this until today, but the person that was actually sharing every single thing posted on the Today app, basically downloading it because there are ways around these things, even if Nintendo blocks it from their app, obviously, and posting it onto Twitter or X or whatever, he got issued a takedown notice because he was reposting the news, the trailers, the little minor bits of like, hey, look, this is where Donkey Kong can jump onto a car. Like these minor tidbits of information. So yeah, this is exactly what I predicted would happen when I said this Today app is actually something that is not really as fanboy friendly as you might think. They are literally trying to control their own narrative. They are literally trying to control their own clicks, trying to make sure every single detail, even the minorest iota of news, has to come from their own sources, their own app, their own Twitter account, their own YouTube page. And if you want to be part of the party, you got to join the party. You got to download the app to see it yourself. You can't have somebody else share it online. Yeah, I just thought this was hilarious because I didn't even realize this until moments ago, because I was looking up the Splatoon stuff and I saw that it was uploaded on the Today app first. So I'm like, oh, it must have not gotten that much engagement on the Today app, or maybe Nintendo has some kind of data of how many people actually viewed it. And Splatoon is a big IP. If they're doing a spin-off game, that's a big title. That's worthy of a Nintendo Direct, if they were hypothetically having one, which they're probably not. So maybe Nintendo is just like, yeah, no, put this one on YouTube. Make sure people see this because nobody's downloading this app. Or, you know, they're just trying to set a standard that if you want the most breaking news from Nintendo, you have to have our app. Make sure you download it so we can collect your data. And then shortly after that, we'll share it on YouTube or Twitter. It's ugly. I already complained about this a lot in the video that I made about it, but it's just the fact that this guy got a DMCA takedown notice for sharing clips from the Today app is... it's Nintendo. That's what it is. It's Nintendo. I am not surprised. In any case, that's enough for now. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you guys on the next one.